Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. I want to welcome everybody to our council meeting this evening. We are going to get going quickly here because we have a very special guest with us. Before we do, I want to acknowledge that the land upon which we are meeting is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. It's home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. It's the head office of the Sinambi Cree First Nation. I want to also recognize the Indigenous Friendship Center and all of the important work that it does in Sault Ste. Marie. This area is commonly and historically referred to as Bouting. And I want to thank all of our Indigenous friends and partners for their leadership and the sharing of their culture and tradition with us. Madam Clerk, if you could please start the meeting.
Under agenda item 1, adoption of minutes, a motion by Councillors Christian and Scott resolved that the meeting, which is minutes of the regular council meeting of January 10th, 2022 be approved.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
Under agenda item 3, declaration of pecuniary interest, Councillor Shoemaker has declared conflict on agenda item 6.2b, the rental housing incentive program, as the applicant is a client of this law.
Thank you, Council. Any other conflicts to declare? Seeing none? Move on, Madam Clerk.
Under agenda item 4, a motion by Councillors Christian and Gardy resolved that the agenda for January 31st, 2022 City Council meeting as presented be approved.
So we're going to have to
Mr. Mayor.
We're going to have a different mover on. One second, Mr. CO. We're going to have a different mover on that because Councillor Gardy is not with us right yet. So we'll have a Councillor.
Oh, Councillor
Hollingsworth had communicated, so that's fine.
All right, I made that change.
Mr. CEO, did you want to reference item 2 on the agenda?
Yeah, yes, under approved agenda as presented, Mr. Mayor, staff is requesting that item 6.13, Sault Ste. Marie Horse and Pony Club, be tabled from this meeting. We will pull it and bring it back to a future meeting of council. We've received some information that we need to canvass with the Horse and Pony Club and discuss further.
Okay, so council staff is looking at pulling that item from the agenda. I certainly am agreeable to that. I understand their desire to have some discussions on that and look for some information. So I see a lot of nodding heads. So I think that is largely agreeable to council. So we can approve the agenda as presented with that amendment.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Hollingsworth?
Can we also move 6.4 from consent? Is this the proper time to suggest that we pull it from consent?
No, it isn't. We'll get to that, Councilor Hollingsworth.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So, Madam Clerk, if we can have a vote on that, then the agenda approved as presented with the one withdrawal. All in favor? Motion carried. That brings us to item 5.
Proclamations and delegations under 5.1, Dr. Roberta Bondar, 30th anniversary, and Dr. Roberta Bondar is in the meeting.
So we do have Dr. Bondar in the meeting. I don't have her visual. Dr. Bondar, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I'm not sure if your video is not on, but we've got a blank screen there. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
My video's on. It just when you went live, somehow I went into the black hole there.
Well,
I assure you, I was there.
We can hear you. You certainly know more about anything that has to do with space than any of us combined here. So I want to thank you for your time today, Council. This is a very really special guest and a special opportunity, as we're all aware. We're celebrating the 30th anniversary of Dr. Bondar's trip to space on Discovery. They left, I think, on January 22nd, came back on January 30th, and there were some commemorations over the past week to recognize that very special occasion. She certainly really needs no introduction to our community and city, frankly, as the most distinguished resident ever in our community, I would suggest. But I'm going to make a few notes because her accomplishments are so tremendous. She has received the Order of Canada, the Order of Ontario, the NASA Space Flight Medal, over 28 honorary degrees, introduction to the Canadian Medical Hall of Fame, the International Women's Forum Hall of Fame. She has a star on Canada's Walk of Fame. She was the first neurologist in space, the first Canadian female in space, and she has received every distinction that our city has to give, including our own Medal of Merit and a key to the city. What we were going to do is just have her here to just commend her on the 30th year anniversary. I was going to give Dr. Bonder an opportunity to speak to you. Then we have a short video, and then I have a proclamation to read. So, Dr. Bonder, we'd be happy to hear from you if you had any comments for council and, frankly, the community at large.
Well, thank you very much. And I know I'm receiving chat about my background, but I assure you that the Sioux is there behind me, as it always has been.
Oh, I think
Yes.
the virtual background is causing your video to turn black.
No, it's not a virtual background. It's a green screen, and I don't really have a problem with it.
Okay, my apologies.
Okay, so the Sioux has always been behind me, and certainly for my launch, I do know the Sioux had a lot of citizens packed up and went on buses down to Florida to make sure that I got off the planet okay. And I think people were really quite enchanted when I came back that I was able to come back. And it was, I just remember it was a wonderful event when I did return to the Sioux. Everyone was extremely generous with their comments and outpouring of love and affection. And I must say that one of the things that I remember besides just everything officially that was done was the fact that it was open up to students to ask questions. And I will never forget the little girl that came up to the microphone. She was wearing glasses and boots, of course, because it was January. And she came up and she took the microphone and cranked it down to her level. And she said in a very clear voice, "What's it like, Dr. Bonder, to be loved by everybody?" That will remain the hardest question I have ever been asked around the world and out of this world. So it really is wonderful to feel the love from so many people. I'm very, very happy and very, very proud of my hometown. And as you all know, I give it lots of play and did for the event on January the 22nd, the 30th anniversary. Certainly for the 25th anniversary when I was at my hometown, and everybody just came up and they were able to say hello. And we had a big event for it to celebrate it. And people were very, very supportive of the foundation that bears my name. Again, on the 30th anniversary, people shared in, and I had the background that I'm sorry you can't see, but I don't know why. Probably could come out and come back in again, but just trust me, it's a lovely space image of the Sioux in the winter. I think it was taken on February the 2nd, a couple of years ago, from orbit, from the International Space Station. But I'm always pointing out the Sioux, and I'm always pointing out that it's one of the few places in the world you really know you're over and don't even have to see the city, but you just know where it is because of its location. So I thank the Sioux and everybody who's listening in and people who might listen in even later for joining today to just allow me to have a little bit of presence. And trust me, I'm in the black hole, but I'm there for you.
Yeah. So we do know that, and we do trust that. So we have a short video that we're going to play before I read the proclamation. We have IT setting this up.
Flying to the moon, you lived a dream among the stars. You showed off the maple leaf to Jupiter and Mars. Rub-a-da-bee, PhD. Rub-a-da-bee, you ain't like nobody. When you were a child, you dreamed to fly above the sea, out into the cosmos, right above Sault Ste. Marie. Rub-a-da-bee, you broke through, and suddenly dreams came true. Yes, you took a trip on a rocket ship and showed the world what one can do. By and by your camera I went a supernova to Roberta Bay. Oh, how you flew, Roberta Bay, Roberta Bay. We love you.
That was fantastic. So, and true, we do love you, Dr. Bondar. I have the proclamation to read here. Whereas January 22nd to January 30th, 1992 is a significant date in Canadian history. These dates stand out vividly in the memory of many of us in Sault Ste. Marie. Whereas it was with unspeakable pride that we watched as our community's own Dr. Roberta Bondar became Canada's first Canadian woman in space and the world's first neurologist in space aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery. Whereas 10 years ago, on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of her spaceflight, Roberta celebrated the occasion here in her hometown and assisted the city as we celebrated our own 100th anniversary of incorporation. Whereas at that time, Roberta penned these words to us: "It is indeed my privilege to share with you my love for planet Earth, and of course, my beautiful hometown at the heart of the Great Lakes, Sault Ste. Marie. I want to thank the people of Sault Ste. Marie who have supported and nurtured me. My accomplishments are shared with you." And whereas on this occasion of Roberta's 30th anniversary, the media from across the country has featured her, describing her as an extraordinary Canadian, trailblazer, and indeed a citizen of Earth and beyond. Whereas Roberta was first a citizen of this community, along with her family, has never forgotten her home, and has contributed richly to our growth and understanding of the world around us. And where on this occasion, we want to say thank you and to express our pride in and our support for Dr. Roberta Lynn Bondar Suite. Now, therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby extend our congratulations and steadfast support in all of your endeavors and wish you good health and happiness for many more years to come. Dr. Bondar, I always usually make it a point of speaking last, but in this case, I am not going to do that. So if you have anything else you'd like to say to council or the community, you certainly have the floor to do so.
Just want to say that is an extraordinary to be able to be recognized by the city that way. It makes me feel very, very humble, but very, very proud of my lineage in the Sioux and my formative years. I always tell people that if you want to get a good view of life, go to the Sioux. So Roberta B is going to sign off now and wish you all health and happiness and get this COVID behind us, because we need to be in a world full of light. And thank you for bringing some to my day today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if we can move on in the delegations, please. Madam Clerk, if we can move on to the delegations, I think we're at 5.2. I don't have volume from you.
Try now.
Could you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
My apologies, we're having some.
Oh, you got feedback there. So yeah, I can just move on myself if until you sort that out. So we're at.
Let me try this under agenda item 5.2, Indigenous Women and Girls Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's correct. So I have a proclamation. Whereas the March for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, Two-Spirit, and Gender Diverse Persons is a national annual event to raise awareness of the disproportionate number of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Whereas this is an opportunity for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people of all genders and ages to gather in solidarity to remember honor and grieve those who have passed on or who have gone missing. Whereas on February 14th, 2022, the people of Bowting and across Canada will participate in the National Day of Action and Remembrance for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, to call for actions to end all forms of gendered and colonial violence. Now, therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby declare February 14, 2022 as a Memorial Day to remember and honor missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, two-spirit, and gender-diverse persons. I encourage all residents of the city to support this important national event and to work as a community to heed the calls to justice found in the final report of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Thank you.
Under agenda 5.3, Black History Month 2022.
Whereas in December 1995, the House of Commons officially recognized February as Black History Month, following a motion introduced by the first Black Canadian woman elected to Parliament, the Honourable Jean Augustine. Whereas the proud legacy of Black Canadians goes back to the early beginnings of Canadian history. Whereas the United Nations proclaimed 2015 to 2024 the decade for people of African descent, an important step in the international community recognizing the people of African descent represent a distinct group whose human rights must be promoted and protected. Whereas Black History Month continues to provide the City of Sault Ste. Marie with the opportunity to celebrate the achievements and contributions of Black Canadians to the rich diversity, growth, and development of Canada. Now, therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2022 as Black History Month and invite all members of the community to take part in events in our community and across Canada. Thank you.
Under agenda item 5.4, bond suit.
So as the community can see, we are wearing our bond suit red today. It is that time of year. Each year, the residents of Sault Ste. Marie await the arrival of Mr. Bonsu and the Ontario Winter Carnival with great enthusiasm. Whereas many local individuals, groups, service clubs, and businesses organize and sponsor a variety of interesting events for everyone, especially families, throughout the 10 days of the carnival. Whereas in order for all citizens and visitors to fully enjoy and reflect the spirit of the carnival, they must be properly attired. Whereas this year marks the 59th anniversary of the Community Winter Festival. Now, therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, request that all citizens and visitors wear a Bonsu souvenir during the period of February 4th to February 13th, 2022, which are now proclaimed as Ontario Winter Carnival Bonsu season in the City of Sault Ste. Marie. Bonsu is for you. Let it snow.
Under agenda 5.5, Oklahoma University, Ozma Vezina, President and Vice Chancellor, is in the meeting.
Welcome to Council. President Vezina, it's nice to see you. You've got a presentation for us.
I sure do.
The floor is yours.
Okay, good evening, Your Worship, City Councilors, City staff, and community members. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this evening an Algoma U update on some of the key strategic initiatives currently underway. As many of you are aware, we've made great strides as an institution over the recent couple of years, and there's such great positive momentum growing into the foreseeable future. We know a strong university supports the continued social, economic, and cultural fabric of our community, and we have taken a very intentional approach to ensuring our efforts are well aligned with the aspirations and vision of our city. So we wanted to start by sharing this video on the next slide that takes you on a journey of campus planning that we've been on. It shares the future, if you will, and plants the seed for how we plan to shape our future on the Shingwalk site. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to watch the video, and I'll speak a little bit as you are engaged. I think I can talk while the video is playing. So in 2020, the university established a new campus master plan that would help guide the continued development and growth to 3,000 FTE and beyond, while at the same time expanding the research portfolio of our Sault Ste. Marie campus for the next 10 years. The Algoma University 2020 Campus Master Plan that is highlighted in this video is bold, it's innovative, it's inclusive, and it's forward-looking. Equity and environmental stewardship have been woven throughout the plan. Together, we've created something exceptional that will support Algoma University's strategic development, institutional priorities and planning, and continued enrollment growth over the next decade. The university will make decisions in the future that will be informed by our campus master plan, but there will be flexibility within. The future implementation will depend on political will, market forces, access to resources and capital, and a commitment by leadership. However, the plan is a strong conceptual framework containing recommendations on land stewardship, building use, campus function, and operational configuration, as well as paying attention to landscape and open space, all while thinking about infrastructure, urban design, and aesthetics, as well as phasing. It is visionary and provides 5 important opportunities to think big and explore new ideas, improve efficiencies and ensure proper infrastructure is in place, create a sense of pride and a sense of place, weaving our connections back to our community, helping us to identify needs and develop cost-effective solutions while we prioritize our investments. And all the while, finally, aligning with the strategic goals of the institution and our community. This is a macro look, but we've purposely not incorporated actual buildings. We've used green-spaced boundary buildings that are not set in stone, but reflects on how we will grow and how we will grow our footprint as shaped by the actual plans as they move forward. It does reinforce that there is sufficient space on the current site for us to accomplish our goals. So thank you very much for showing that video. I'll move on to slide 3. And what we wanted to do now is just give you a sense of what's actually happening today on campus. Just give it a minute. So good news, prior to COVID, we were planning for enrollment growth, and we really weren't sure what was going to happen through COVID. It was a bit of a interesting experience for us, but I think we put some real strategy into place, and today I'm here to share some of the success of that. So enrollment has continued to increase on all 3 of our campuses, which I think speaks to the exceptional programs that Algoma University are receiving across all 3 of our campuses. This year, we hit a milestone of 3,157 FTE, which was hitting our 3,000 target 3 years ahead of schedule. We have approximately 42% of those students on our Sault Ste. Marie campus. In Sault Ste. Marie, we saw domestic applications up 15.6% this year, and international applications up 53%. In fact, Algoma University had one of the highest growth in university applications in the province this year. And again, this is about 40% higher than where we were 4 years ago, and we will continue to grow. Over the next 3 years, we are anticipating to have at least 1,800 FTE or closer to 3,000 head count on our Sault Ste. Marie campus by 24-25. Next slide, please. So we have a number of special projects underway. Makwawakayagan, the Center of Cultural Excellence, will be a capital focal point in this new year as we move forward with the implementation of our campus master plan. We're in the process of completing the design on this really exciting build, which will focus on cross-cultural excellence for the country. It will be a place that supports Algoma's aspiration with community to be national leaders in reconciliation, in cross-cultural teaching, learning, and research. Makwawakayagan is a place that honors the past, celebrates the present, and welcomes the future. It respects and values Indigenous and non-Indigenous experience, history, culture, and teaching. It will encourage inclusive dialogue in our community and the sharing of ideas and ways of all people. It will be a home for the Shingwalk Residential School Center and a significant archive from the residential school's time period. It will tie into and support the Reclaiming Shingwalk Hall national exhibit that will see tens of thousands of visitors to our site each year. The successful architects, Moriyama and Tashima, as well as Smoke Architecture, will begin construction work this spring of 2022, and we expect the completion of this $18 million project by the fall, looking at an additional 21,000 square foot build on the university site. We did have, in an earlier study, we wanted to understand the total economic impact. The social impact is huge. The cultural impact is huge. The economic impact over the next 10 years, we'll see $36.4 million in additional income because of this project. The second project we wanted to highlight on the next slide was the addition of the School of Computer Science and Technology. This was one project that had to be put on hold while we contemplated what we would do through the pandemic. And it was thanks to the generosity of FedNor, who made a $1.98 million investment so that we could build the School of Computer Science and Technology. And so we've actually been able to expand our footprint by almost 50% in this programming and research area. And it is now in a rapid growth phase. We have, it is now the fastest growing undergraduate program at Algoma University. Since 2018, the program has actually grown 93%. And it is a significant reason why the university did not decline in enrollment through the pandemic like so many others did. We're projecting now that this program will grow an additional 58% by 2024. And I'm really pleased this evening to share with the community that we have 2 master's programs in computer science and technology moving through internal processes, and we believe we will be announcing that within the year. So very, very exciting to see the university positioning itself as a Northern Ontario leader in computer science and technology, ensuring that we are meeting the needs of a growing industry, and that as we attract new industries into this area, that we have the skill set in the university coming out to support those employers. On the next slide, we're going to feature the School of Business and Economics. And I just have to catch my spot here. In 2019, you'll remember that the city approved $400,000 to support the construction of the School of Business and Economics. And again, when the pandemic hit, we had to reprioritize some of our spending and we put on pause the school. But what that did was it actually allowed us to look a little bit more deeply into the campus master plan and the strategic plans of the university. And so tonight, what we're doing is sharing with you that our original design has now expanded to include the Center for Social, Cultural, and Economic Innovation, which will house things like City Studio, a brand new focus on continuing education, and introducing micro-credentials and other training mechanisms that will upskill and reskill current labor force. We'll be working very, very closely with local employers. So you can see that in this design, scheduled for 2025, I believe, design work is happening right now. I've got a slide, next slide, that'll show you that schedule. But what we'll see here is a brand new entry into the university as well, and a place for community to come in and sit and work with teams of students and researchers and faculty on real challenges, real issues, problems that the communities are trying to solve, and working collaboratively in that space. So I'm going to move to the next project. These are the timelines. As we mentioned earlier, we're looking to tender documents as early as December 2022 on that project, with construction starting June 9th, 2024. I'll go to the next slide. This one is very special to many of us. We've been working on it for a couple of years, and it's really our effort to help the community with the challenges that they're facing right now on mental health and addictions and the opioid crisis. We really have 2 crises in this country right now, the pandemic and then the mental health and addictions. And so what we're working on right now is a feasibility study with Sault College, SKG, Shingwak Kinomagegamic, Northern Ontario School of Medicine, as well as the local hospital, Area Hospital. And what we'd like to do is build the first Northern Ontario Mental Health and Addictions Research Training Institute, an institute that will prepare a new generation of mental health professionals through certificate, diploma, degree, and master's level programming, as well as other medical training. We are in very close conversation with the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, looking at ways to immediately expand their presence and their reach into Sault Ste. Marie. And with this institute, we'll give them a fairly solid home on the Shingwalk site. We estimate the cost for this project to be around $30 million, construction beginning, depending on what happens politically and with our fundraising efforts, to have this project completed by 2028 at the latest. And finally, I wanted to just bring a little bit of information on economic impact. Our latest economic impact study that has been done by the consulting team, MC, will show the overall impact of having a university in a community is significant. And we just brought this slide forward for you today to have a sense of what's happening. But overall, Algoma University in Sault Ste. Marie is having an impact of approximately $99 million annually, which is an increase of 23% since the last study we shared with you in 2017 and 18. And of course, we know economic impact has social and cultural impact. And we want to be clear that we're not just focused on the economic, but also the social and the cultural. We will be making the full presentation to our Board of Governors in March. But some fun facts we wanted to share with you tonight. 1 in 28 jobs in Sault Ste. Marie is supported by the activities of Algoma University and its students. And since the pandemic, we have not had to lay off one single person at Algoma University. In fact, through the pandemic, we hired 26 new full-time positions on the Sault Ste. Marie campus. And during this period, we also anticipate to hire 16 new full-time PhD level professors over the next year across all of the campuses. So this is an exciting time. Our university has also put a fairly significant push on research. And if we want to go to the final slide, just a couple of highlights there. We are currently investing in research and innovation. We've put 5 new positions in and significant budget. We have 3 Canada Research Chairs, which is the highest chair in the country, doing work, and they have secured in total about $2.7 million in funding from the federal government. We also have a 4th Canada Research Chair in the wing. And just to highlight some of the talent that Algoma is bringing to our community, one of our most recent hires, Dr. Narosha Murrigan, who's an associate professor in the biology department. She's studying regenerative medicine. Dr. Murrigan was named the Rising Star. There were not many of these awards. She had a lot of competition, but the Minister of Colleges and Universities singled her out for her cutting edge research. She's working with a team of scientists right now, and they've found a way to regrow limbs on frogs who've lost their legs. The focus of this work is to somehow look at future research for limb regeneration in humans. She's been featured in the New York Times last week, as well as The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and has been winning other accolades and awards. And she's living in Sault Ste. Marie. So lots to share. I could go on for hours. I was told I had 10 minutes. Hopefully I've stayed in that time frame for you, but happy to answer any questions. I think we just, coming through the pandemic, people had questions about how the university was doing, and we wanted to say we are doing fantastic. There is a huge momentum growing, and we're just thrilled to be able to share some of that with you this evening. Back over to you, Your Worship, and thank you again for allowing us to present tonight.
Thank you very much for that, President. Before I go to council for questions or comments, I had a few of my own that I wanted to make. I wanted to thank you for your leadership and really all of the faculty and staff at Algoma University for really the exceptional progress that we're seeing there. I don't think that you can overstate, in my opinion, how important the university is to our community. to be a community of our size and to have both a college and a university, two really strong institutions. It's incredibly important, not only for the economic output that you talk about. I would suggest it's equally important, if not more important, because of the social impact and the cultural impact. And we're seeing that more and more significantly in our community. And I think Algoma University and Sault College, but Algoma University is the institution in front of us today. You're having a really important social impact. And if we keep on driving the plan that you're showing us today, that social impact will become more substantial, not only in giving our own youth an opportunity to study here and stay here. And we're seeing that with the diversity of programs and the computer science programs and the business programs, but also the people that we attract here to grow our community and grow our labor force and the cultural components that we bring to our community by having our university. And you mentioned Dr. Murrigan, and I read about her with great interest, and I saw the coverage she got, and I thought that was really impressive. But I'll give you another example is I think your longest standing research chair is Dr. Antunes, and I can say that Pedro has personally been a resource to me throughout my time as the mayor. And it's one great example about how professionals at the university are helping their community and supporting their community. He's become integrally involved in our community. He's involved in the committees at the municipality, and he's been personally available to me to kind of help me work through issues that might be in his field or might be something that he can contribute to. And I want to thank him for that, and thank you for what you're doing. I think you've been at the leadership of the university now for a few years, and it's pretty clear they made a great decision when they decided to put you in that position. You earned it, and you're really doing some great work there, and you're leaving your mark. And I want to thank you for everything you're doing. It's really positive to see where the university's going, and I think there are very bright days ahead for both it and our community. So thank you. So, Council, if we have any other questions or comments, I'll start with Councillor Vezuel, and then Councillor Scott, and Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thanks so much, Ozma, for the report. And I am a proud Algoma University alumni, so it's always great to see these things happen. Just two questions. In terms of expansion, especially with the School of Business, have you thought of having that go off campus? Maybe towards sort of the downtown business area where you have, your accounting firms and banks and all of that sort of thing. Has there been any thought about relocating, having some satellite areas?
Yeah, there has been some discussion. There was actually some discussion about whether a school should actually be built in the downtown, whether it was business or computer science or something else. What we're finding when we talk with our students is they want to be connected to the actual campus experience. And they do find it difficult to be going back and forth with electives and other things that the life of the campus. However, one of the things that we're talking about with internships and some of the partnership work that we're trying to do is could we have, like you said, almost like satellites in the different areas of the city so that our students have a place to land when they are in the downtown. And so we're quite open to looking at that. One of the things we needed to do with this campus master plan was to really connect all of the parts of the campus, because what we were finding is it feels a little disjointed. So we're going to do a little bit of work on our campus first. But I think that the opportunities, particularly as the city's revitalizing their downtown and some of the other big areas like the mall and the waterfront, that we want to be a part of that. We want our students to see that vibrancy and to feel it.
Great, wonderful. And in terms of the expansion of the computer science, building our knowledge-based industry is so key. And I don't think people realize that computer scientists aren't just, programmers or coders at Spotify or Google, that it lands over into so many different areas. So what are the plans in terms of kind of promoting that virtual work and making connections with especially the software companies in GTA? And so many people now are working remote and have, it wasn't new to the software industry pre-pandemic, it was really becoming sort of part of the culture. So has there been any connections so that students can maybe perhaps have cooperative opportunities, be it virtual, with other larger companies?
Yeah, so the School of Computer Science and Technology has just undergone a fairly significant strategic planning exercise. They now have a 3-year plan that really clearly outlines their objectives. They have just put in place a co-op pathway for students. It used to be a little more random. Now students can come in directly into the co-op program. We've also been hiring and putting resources into our experiential learning department so that they can really start to create these connections with industry. Having said that, we also are in conversation with a number of significant and large-sized corporations to talk about how we can work together on the research front and on the student experience aspect. And I will share with you that 100% of our students that graduate in that program are finding employment within the first year of graduation. The other thing that we know is that if we offer master's level programming, the innovation in this community will expand tremendously, as well as the business startups and entrepreneurial activity. So this is also reflected in this recent strategic plan.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ozma. Always great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next, I have Councilor Scott.
I read your lips on that one. I'm also an Algoma University alumni, and I believe a few other councillors are. This presentation was fantastic. I do have a question, but first I want to pump up how great I thought this presentation was. It really made me want to go back to Algoma University and almost regret that I had gone there 10 years ago instead of today, simply because of all these changes going on. I dabbled in both the computer science and I finished actually with a business degree. So this touched on everything that I love. My quick question was, so I'm just curious about the alumni impact, actually. How is that calculated? If you could just give me a little bit more.
Sure, yeah. I'm just going to grab a note here.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So basically what they look at, and we use a third party to help us calculate this, and they're quite a respected, their names are MZ, but they look at former students' higher earnings, and there's a calculation that goes into that. They also look at increased productivity of regional businesses from human capital accumulation, as well as regional workforce. So that there's quite a complex number crunching that goes on with that, but it's data from our community that's used. And I would share with you as well, most of you have met our director, Colin Wilson, who works out of the advancement, leading actually the advancement work for the university. He's also put a huge focus this year on alumni, because we actually think that the alumni will be huge friends of the university as we move forward with our planning. Their voices are going to be very important. So there's going to be a fairly significant outreach to alumni over the course of the next couple of years, just to get them involved and re-engaged. And I will share with you the Speakeasy, for those that remember the Speakeasy 5 years ago, 10 years ago, has been completely revamped. Our student association took their investments and redid the whole building, or whole area of the university. So next time you're in, I hope you'll stop by and see what that looks like as well.
Absolutely. That's actually really good to hear. That was one thing that I always thought while I was there that they could improve upon. So it's good to see that that work is getting done. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for the presentation. This is awesome. I always will support Algoma University and everything that you guys do. And it's great to see this coming together. So thank you again for being here.
Thanks so much, Councillor Scott.
So next on my list, I had Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Congratulations on such a wonderful vision. Basically, Algoma, yourself, your entire team, you're such a good example to this community, to Northern Ontario, and so forth, for setting such a vision and such a great plan. Being a selfish person, you're not only helping our students, you're helping our community. So I want to stress a huge thank you. You're very innovative. So my question is, because you're so innovative, and I know that the campus is so concerned about the environment, you touched briefly on the environment. How are you making your campus environmentally friendly? Are you able to give us 3 examples, please?
Yeah, so you'll find when we're now doing our capital builds, all of the green energy, all the focus on the building materials, how we deal with waste, and also some of the systems that we're bringing into those new builds to ensure that we are recycling and that we are environmentally conscious in all that we're doing. So from the lighting to the windows to the power sources, we'll be doing a lot of thinking, and we're looking for architects that can help us really look at modern and best practices in that industry. We are also in the process of putting a strategy. The campus master plan clearly outlines our commitments, and now what we need to do is start to put our strategy in place for how we're going to model what we're saying we're going to do. So things like recycling, you'll see a lot of gardens on campus now, really thinking about land use, reverting back to some of the natural plant species, as well as species that are medicinal and healing in nature. We're looking at spaces where we can have students using bicycles and connecting to the hub trails instead of driving. I shouldn't say just students. Employees as well. So lots of good thinking going on there and actual action that's happening as we speak.
Wonderful. And if I can comment, I really enjoy seeing that you're always building partnerships and with our other local institutions such as Sault College and our Northern Ontario Medical School. I know that you have always believed in partnerships, so I'm happy to see that. And last, but I enjoy seeing your painting behind you. And I think that's our local artist, Amy Williams. So wonderful. You are a true leader. And I know many people admire you. Thank you for what you're doing for us, for our community and our students.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hollingsworth.
Okay, do I have anybody else on this? Seeing none, thank you for your time, Madam President. We're going to move on with our agenda. We appreciate the information you shared with us and the community today, and we look forward to watching the university develop this year.
Thanks very much, Mayor Provenzano, and thanks everybody.
That brings us, Madam Deputy Clerk, to 5.6, and we do have Steve here on that matter. Steve, welcome to Council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you clearly, Steve.
Oh,
yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council and city staff. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present to you some of the works that the local immigration partnership here at Sault Ste. Marie has been doing and some of the goals that we have to push forward. Now, as a background, the local immigration partnership is an initiative of the IRCC, that's Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, which is designed to encourage communities across the province to develop extensive and comprehensive local settlement strategy plans. And of course, it's more a plan to help people integrate into the community as we try to attract them in here. So next slide, please. Now, for part of the goals that we are trying to do, part of the background rather, we know it's the local immigration partnership has been set up to create a safe, welcoming, inclusive, and engaged community for all. And of course, in many cases, you would see how it aligns with some of the other strategies that the city has, which is to attract, support, and retain newcomers. So, of course, we do a lot of this through collaborative efforts with partners and find ways to overcome barriers that may impede these goals from happening. So we also go ahead to promote cultural awareness, intercultural integration, and acceptance. Next slide, please. So for next slide, please. Yeah. So for some of the goals that we are pushing forward more actively, we're looking at employment, social inclusion, business development, and integration support. Now, of course, this document has been circulated to the members of council to be able to look at, but what we have come to realize is for the local immigration partnership to be very effective, some of the things that we need to focus on are the things that really do impact on newcomers, immigrants, and every stakeholder that is involved with this. We identify that for everybody coming in, they need that socioeconomic balance when they come into this community. So beyond being able to organize programs and activities, they need to be able to support themselves. That means they have to get jobs. And if they do want to do business, it's also important that they have the access, capacity, and also the support to be able to do it. And of course, we also know that for anyone to desire staying in a community, it's important that they're able to create a social connection. And for the social connection, we have been able to work with different partners, different organizations and associations within the city to help people find more like social groups that they can belong to, whether it's in the religious or non-religious, the volunteer setting, or just community engagement endeavors generally. And so we know that for every newcomer, they want to be able to support themselves and their families. A lot of them are bringing in kids who want to ensure that they are able to work with these more actively. Next slide, please. Now, for some of the projects that we've been able to do along this line, now, of course, some of these projects predate me becoming the coordinator of the local immigration partnership. There has been some very good work done by Danny, Adrian, and Sean, who have filled the roles and found a way to help sustain the goals and development of the local immigration partnership. So in the past, well, still ongoing kind of, we have been a part of the Algoma Vaccination Support Council to help determine how we're able to see how immigrants or newcomers want to, how they adapt getting on with the vaccines. And of course, this, I think at the beginning, it wasn't that easy, but eventually things were able to roll along that line, which is good. In the past, there has been Passport to Unity events, and that has been quite a while. We're trying to see if we can bring it back because it forms a very major part of how people feel welcome, especially people of who are newcomers, and of course, visible minorities also really have this to say. Well, it involves them too. Then, of course, not too long ago, we were able to work with the Francophone community to organize their first Francophone Immigration Week. And graciously, the mayor was there to make a proclamation for that week, which was really beautiful. And of course, Black Business Month, cultural group support, and we've been able to work with different partners, but more specifically, the Northern Policy Institute to be able to work on a Pan-Northern Immigration Summit. And of course, some other partners do work along this line too. So ongoing projects, we're still working on these, and some of them we've had some headway, and but we have the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities, the Culture Connects column with Sault today, and Sault today has actually done a very beautiful job to create that column for us, where we can have immigrant stories, newcomer stories actually told in their own first person, as opposed to what might have been before. Then, of course, we are working on the LIP councils, the committees. Of course, we've been able to set up some committees before now, and still fine-tuning some others, like the Newcomers Advisory Committee, the Francophone Advisory Committee, the Interfaith Committee, and a number of committees that do help us support some of the different gaps that may actually to help us bridge the gaps that may actually be present in some in the ways that newcomers want to feel welcome and also adapt their lives and themselves into the community. So we have projects we're working on along the line of racism and discrimination. We're still doing some discussions along that line with the social services. We have video projects that we're working on, which will provide awareness about Sault Ste. Marie, how beautiful it is, and how it's the great place to be, a great place to start, and a great place to stay, basically. And of course, some other video series that we're working on along with some of our partners to create some level of awareness about how there might be difference in cultures and differences in traditions and all, but the difference between us is not that much because we are all just one race, which is the human race. And that is critically important because if that point is not made clearly, from different perspectives or from different angles, then we may never be able to sink it in, beyond what we have right now. So of course, we have partners that we're working on with on researches, social equity, cultural integration and acceptance. And of course, in the future, we look to be able to have the newcomer and indigenous relations. Of course, we've had a number of conversations with the Friendship Center, and it's been beautiful. Some of these projects we haven't been able to tie up some of the ends because of the current reality we found ourselves, which is the COVID era, basically. But things are looking really good. And in the future, we also expect that we'll be able to work better with the Francophone community to increase a lot more awareness, a lot more attraction, and then work with them by knowing exactly what needs to be done for the community to grow and thrive. Of course, business support for newcomers. This is one critical element that we believe is going to help the city. For anybody to come into the city, they want to be sure that they can get jobs. But if they cannot get jobs, we also want to ensure that they can start one. And we all know that once a person is able to start a job, start a business, even if all he or she is employing is just one other staff or two, that increases the capacity of the city. And we already know that, for a lot of the skills that we need to bring into the city, we don't have as many companies that would mop up the skills. So we hope that this will happen very soon. But of course, on this one, we're working with the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center to apply for funding with FedNo, and it's moving steadily. And we hope that it comes to a very beautiful fruition on that one, where visible minorities, newcomers are able to start their businesses regardless of some of the requirements that used to be the barriers for them. Then, of course, in the future, we're hoping to be able to to start the annual newcomer welcoming celebration, which we're hoping will be more like a week-long celebration of culture, traditions, music, food, and colors, basically. Next slide. So for some of our projects and programs that we're working on relaunching, that speaks to some of the future things that we are working on. Relaunching Passport to Unity, creating a sustainable annual welcoming event, business support and tools in partnership with Millworks, Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center, and other key partners geared towards newcomers and immigrants. employment and newcomer retention, we've been working very closely with the Chamber of Commerce on this one in how to help create some level of awareness for employers to know that there's a lot more value employing people from other perspectives and cultures and traditions and mindsets, because that improves businesses and that does help businesses expand. And on this one, we've had many phone calls that we see the difference, because a lot of employers do call us to say, we have this immigrant who is here, we want to retain him. How can we work together to do that? Because they see the value in employing newcomers and immigrants, basically. Then, of course, the employment and, okay, I think I did that one. Creating partnerships to support immigrant and newcomers in employment and professional networking, anti-racism awareness and training programs in partnership with Chamber of Commerce, video projects, and then research and feedback, gathering information from newcomers on services and barriers that prevent them from integrating into the community. Of course, we do have a lot of cultural organizations and associations within the Sioux that are doing a very beautiful job that we work with them. Like the NOLA, the Akano, the Filipino group, the Pakistani, Bangladeshi, and a host of other cultural groups that do actually help people from their community to integrate, like help them get housing, help them get jobs, help them settle, get some temporary settlement in order for them to not get frustrated and leave. So, and these are things they do as volunteers, and I do personally want to say thank you to all of them for doing a great job. Yeah, and next slide, please. I think that's the last one. Okay, so
sorry,
consent.
You just,
Yes.
there's problems down here. Just before you get into the slide, I just want to note that it's 5:30 and our planning agenda starts at 5:30. So I don't want to interrupt you. I want you to finish your slide, but at the end of the slide, you have to move to the planning agenda because that's scheduled to start at 5:30. So thank you,
The
Steve.
last one. Yes. So, well, the concerns we have right now is still affordable housing for those coming in fresh, free mental health support, language and culturally sensitive on that level, social equity for temporary workers, because a lot of them do not have access to some of the programmings or accessibilities that the government has provided. Then, of course, access to funds and grants to support newcomer economic and business development, and support for volunteer and cultural groups. Thank you.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much for that. Thank you for the work you're doing at the local immigration partnerships, you and your team. It is appreciated very much. We can't take questions at this time because we do have a planning matter on the planning agenda. The planning agenda is scheduled to start at 5:30, so we're going to have to get to that. But I want to thank you for your presentation and your time today and your work. It's good work, it's important work, and we appreciate it. So thank you, Steve.
Thank
so,
you,
Madam
Mayor.
Deputy Clerk, if we can get to the planning agenda, please. I do believe we have a delegation here on that matter also.
That's correct. Under my apologies.
We gotta get your audio.
I'm just having some audio issues. Okay, my apologies.
Is IT with you, Madison?
Yes, Frank's trying to work on one
Okay, so maybe I can just take this. We're going to go to 7.7.1 A-1 22-Z. It is the planning application for 16 Caesar Road. So I'm going to, while we work out the deputy clerk's audio, I'm going to go to the director of planning. Is Mr.
Tenazzo is here.
Mr. Tenazzo, do you want to give us a synopsis of this planning application, please?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant wishes to rezone and redesignate. It's the rear 17 feet of the residential property on Caesar Road. And this is to accommodate additional commercial parking for the abutting commercial plaza to the north, which is on Trunk Road and just east of Lake Street. Among other occupants, Primo Pizza is in that little plaza. The planning director's recommendation is to approve the application subject to a number of conditions, primarily aimed at mitigating any negative impacts to the abutting residential properties to the south. And the applicant's solicitor, Mr. Mark Lepore, I believe is available should council have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mr. Tenazzo, Mr. Lepore, you're here on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm here on behalf of the applicant. It's as Mr. Tenazzo mentioned, the intent is to alleviate the parking issues at 149 Trunk Road. Now, as a matter of clarity, Primo Pizza is in the building next door to that. This building, it doesn't house the Primo Pizza. It's the same property owner. But historically, there have been parking issues. We'd like to add 5 additional parking spaces. This rezoning application is required before an eventual severance to sever the property in question from 16 Caesar and as a lot addition to 149 Trunk. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lepore. Madam Clerk, before I take questions from council, do we have anybody else registered to speak in favor of the application?
Can you hear my audio now?
I can.
Okay, my apologies for that. No other, there was no other registrants to speak and no other communication.
Okay, and no registered to speak, to be clear, either in favor or opposed to the application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So I'll take questions from council for either our planning department, Mr. Tenazzo, or the applicant's counsel, Mr. Lepore. We'll start with Councillor Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Christian, you muted after you said thank you. So we appreciate the pleasantry, but we couldn't hear anything else.
Well, I don't want you to get shortchanged. Anyway, a question through you to Mr. Tenazzo. When you were looking at the design of this extension, is there enough consideration for snow buildup and runoff in the spring? I know there have been concerns from other neighbors and abutting properties about that. So I guess my question is, are we comfortable that those types of issues will be addressed in anything that's designed here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, absolutely. So 2 things, the zoning's been designed that it's parking only, and then we have applied, or we've recommended that site plan control be applied. So we will at that point look at, because there is a bit of an encroachment that'll happen here and a bit of a jog in the property line. So we'll make sure through site plan control that there's ditching or some form of water capture that happens so that it doesn't make its way onto the residential properties to the south and southeast.
Thank you. That's my only question, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have anything else from any other city councilors on the matter? Councillor Gardy.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tenazzo's audio cut out. Can I just have some clarification around what specifically type of infrastructure will be there, put in place to mitigate against any kind of flooding on adjacent properties? I heard a ditch potentially.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gardy. Hopefully you can hear me now. At this point, we're looking for sure a fence to go around that because it is a commercial parking area, and then possibly a little swale that'll just direct. We haven't looked at the details yet, but we're certain that the drainage can appropriately be accommodated.
Okay, because that's the only kind of concerns that I heard from neighbors thus far was in and around drainage, like Councillor Christian. Thanks, Peter.
Any other questions, council, or Councillor Vezzo-Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one, Mr. Tenazzo. So the people parking, would it be people working? So there wouldn't be like a lot of in and outs. So it wouldn't be people going in the back to park for 5 or 10 minutes to pick up and then leave. So it would be more static parking. So there wouldn't be a lot of interruption for those people that are living on Caesar.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's my sense, and Mr. Lepore might be able to answer that better, but my understanding is that it's to alleviate a bit of a parking shortage in the front, which is for, patrons to the businesses, and that the employees would park at the back. It's a little difficult to get back there. It's not the easiest, I think, for somebody that's visiting the business. So I think it's fairly safe to say that it's employee parking.
Is that satisfactory to you, Councilor Breslin?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Council? Okay, see none, and we've not had anybody else registered to speak for or against it. Madam Deputy Clerk, if you could read the resolution, we can have a vote on it.
A motion by Councillors Christian and Scott resolved the report of the planner dated January 31st, 2022 concerning official plan and rezoning application A122-Z.OP be received, and that council redesignate the northern 5.18 meters of 16 Caesar Road from residential to commercial on land use Schedule C of the official plan by approving official plan amendment number 237. Be it further resolved that council rezone the subject property in the following manner. 1. Northern 5.18 meters of 16 Caesar Road be rezoned from medium density residential zone R4 to general commercial zone C4.S with a special exemption to A, permit a parking lot in association with 149 Trunk Road only, and B, permit access from Trunk Road only. And 2, the remaining portion of 16 Caesar Road be rezoned from medium density residential zone R4 to medium density residential zone R4.S with a special exemption to, in addition to those uses permitted in an R4 zone, reduce the required frontage from 18 meters to 15 meters and reduce required front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 5.5 meters. And that the northern 5.18 meters of 16 Caesar Road be deemed subject to site plan control as per section 41 of the Planning Act. And that the legal department be requested to prepare the necessary bylaws to effect the same. And it's open for voting.
All in favor? Just cast your vote there on e-scribe, please. The resolution is passed. Mr. Lepore, thank you for your time and attention today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just need Councillor Bruni's vote.
Councillor Bruni, you were in the affirmative, correct?
Yeah, I don't have it up here. It hasn't come up. I'm for.
Vote's closed.
Okay. That brings us to the consent agenda, I believe, Madam Deputy Clerk. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I had a request from Councillor Hollingsworth to accept 6.4.
Okay, so we are at the consent agenda. 6.4 is accepted, so we will not be dealing with that. And 6.13 was pulled by staff, so that is no longer on the consent agenda. So council, we're on the consent agenda, so I'm going to start with Councillor Nero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Agenda item 6.19, the Blue Box Transition Report. I have a question for Ms. Susan Hamilton Beach. Susan, a very good report. Thank you. It's very thorough and informative. Regarding the individual producer responsibility, the way I read it, the producers will have a choice in how they meet the requirements, and they're going to be deciding how to collect and recycling and packaging materials themselves or through the PRO, if I understand this correctly. When I read through the report, gives me, I make the assumption that it's a possibility that city could not even have a role in recycling at the end of all this. Is that true?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Nero. Yes and no. I think from the residential side of things, it's definitely the intent that the producers take over that responsibility. And the term is pros. So that body would in fact work for each of the respective producers and collect and process and then in fact use the product. From the commercial side of things, and our business district, etc., the city may still have a role to finance that collection and processing. Again, all of these details are yet to be hammered out with each, I'll say, passing month, more being worked out. And in fact, the municipality is becoming more aware.
Okay, thank you. And guess what I picked up on was that if the pro makes the decision directly to deal with the companies that are picking up recycling, they really don't have to contract or go through the city to contract that recycler, correct?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Nero, you are correct. Again, that is to be determined. We have, I'll say, volunteered or offered that we in fact would be contract administrators. We see ourselves being paid for that role, but all those details to be worked out and obviously brought back to council when the terms of those agreements would be entered into.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that answer. That's all I have on that one, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anybody else on that item? That's Councillor Shoemaker on that item, then Councillor Vezo-Allen and Councillor Bruni.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. Hamilton Beach. Do you foresee that this would go from being a cost center for us to a revenue generator, potentially?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker. I'm timid, I guess, to suggest that. I think that's the overall intent, that those that are producing these products would be wholly responsible for the costs and the arrangements. Until I see those details, I wouldn't suggest it'll be a revenue generator. In some of the other models and with our hazardous waste facility, we're certainly not in the situation where we see a revenue being received. But I think that's the overall intent of the municipality's lobbying for such a system.
Okay, well, hopefully that is the case, that at least it becomes a revenue neutral issue. But if it did generate anything, that'd just be a bonus. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Vezo-Allen.
Thank you. And thank you, Susan, for this report. I want to just highlight on page 4 with the list of businesses, which obviously is of concern. So if we still provided recycling receptacles, like in our municipal parks, all of that sort of thing, then would the responsibility be for us to find a way to dispose of that recycling? I'm thinking, Bellevue Park, the trail, all of that kind of thing.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vezo-Allen. So it is my understanding that public facilities such as those you mentioned would be included. There are others that would not be. Many, logistically, I see some confusion to that. Often our BIA has a residence above and there are rental units or in fact residential properties right attached. So to distinguish between the two and to distinguish between many of these, I think is going to be interesting and financially almost impossible to divide. So I certainly would look to see how, in fact, those arrangements will be made.
Have you reached out to your counterparts in other like municipalities in terms of the rolling out of these changes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council Vezo-Allen, yes, the municipalities are very much communicating amongst each other. We have communicated with AMO. We have attended absolutely every webinar. I guess, again, I will go to the HSP program, which is that much further ahead in deadlines. And in fact, some of these meetings are quite heated because there's so many questions and not the answers available.
Okay, thanks so much, Susan. Appreciate it.
Okay, so next on my list is Councillor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to Susan Hamilton Beach. Do we know when an approximate time this would start, number one? And has this system been put in place as a trial with any other municipality, or this is still from the grassroots? Nothing has started.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. The municipality of Sault Ste. Marie is scheduled to transition as of September 30th, 2023. So thus the 1-year extension, bridging that gap with GFL. We have, to my knowledge, there are no pilot programs throughout Ontario. I think they are using other jurisdictions such as BC as one of their models. but very much the model is not determined yet. So I understand as pros are being formulated, all of the options of the different services are being tabled and determined at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Councilor Bruni? Thank you. Anybody else in 619? That's it for 619. Councilor Nero, do you have any more?
I do have one more, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. 6.20. Excuse me.
You go for it.
2022 Capital Transportation Program, the OSIF fund grant. To Mr. Elliott, thank you for that report. Happy to see that the report includes the ravine at Grand Boulevard near Grange Mill. I do believe that hopefully this does get done this year. I think the neighborhood in that area will be glad to see that issue being taken care of. So my question is just basically, Mr. Elliott, do you expect this work to be completed this year? I guess
Mr. Mayor,
prove that number one.
Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Nero, yes, the intent, it's a little bit of a late start for some of these projects, but we're hoping to construct them this year.
Okay, even with engineering, I imagine this one would need some engineering work and consultant work, and we can still get it done.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
No problem. On 620, I see Councilor Bruni, then Councilor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I echo Councilor Nero's comments regarding the grant, the ravine there that's going to hopefully be repaired. I guess my question is the Millennium Court stormwater, the construction of the oil grit structure. I guess my concern is we've spent so much money in that particular area. We spent money on the banks. We had to reconstruct the banks that were falling, and now we're working on the what would you call it? I just lost my my page here, but on Millennium Court, the oil grit structure. Do you think this is a kind of a fault of the contractor that built that subdivision?
Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruni, it's we have many storm outfalls in the city, and you can expect over time that they are going to deteriorate and need replacing. This one has been a problem. It's only 22 years old, but it has been a problem for many years. The issue is it has a environmental compliance approval for stormwater quality, and the work that we did previously was to correct the erosion problems, but we still have we're still responsible for stormwater quality, and that's what this manhole will do. It'll provide the quality that we need to fulfill our obligations under the original environmental compliance approval.
Thank you. But I'm still puzzled at how much money we're spending in that area in a 22-year period. That's my concern. And like I said, I asked you, would this be the developer's problem that developed that area? But you're saying it's not, so we'll move forward. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Shoemaker, you were on 620 yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first off, before I ask my question, Mr. Elliott, I am very pleased that the Pine Street and Pleasant Drive intersection will be getting a pedestrian crossover. Long overdue, perhaps, is the right word, but certainly well needed, and it'll be well used. Couple questions about it, and that along with, I'll put in a plug for Passchendaele Lane, which is going in this summer, will help alleviate not just traffic problems at that intersection, but pedestrian and traffic issues that are ongoing there. So a couple of good developments coming there. So for Pine and Pleasant, there's a number of pedestrian crossovers you've got listed here. When we did the last couple, or at least the one on Queen Street, there was a need to upgrade the lighting in the area. Does the budget that you've got set here, which seems fairly high, I must admit, does that include the lighting upgrades necessary in the area?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Shoemaker, yes, we had the PUC look at each intersection or each pedestrian crossover location, and they did a lighting evaluation, and they've given us an estimate of what the additional lighting, if any, is required. Some need more than others. So we do have a better estimate this time, yes.
Okay, good. And that's included in the estimate you've got here for the cost of it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor to Councillor Shoemaker, we believe it's a healthy estimate for all three.
Okay. Secondly, when a pedestrian crossover goes in here in an area where there's a crossing guard during the day, does it eliminate the need for a crossing guard, or do we maintain the crossing guard despite the fact that the crossover exists?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Shoemaker, I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. I expect we keep the crossing guard there. It's a fairly busy street, but it's something we need to look at for me to give you a proper answer.
Okay, if you could do that at some point, this will take most of the season to put in, I expect, but if you could do it, throughout before the end of the season. And then I think that was it. Okay, thanks.
That was all I had for 620. Anybody else that has any comments, questions in 620? Councilor Dufour on 620, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick follow-up question to Councillor Shoemaker's. Mr. Elliott, in terms of the upgraded lighting for the pedestrian crossovers, does staff's internal plan for crossovers that are crossing over 4 or 5 lanes include added infrastructure so that motorists are well aware of both the potential for pedestrians and pedestrians have adequate amount of time to cross?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Dufour, there are 3, I think at least 3 different designs for pedestrian crossovers, and they vary with traffic. There are design guidelines for us, the type of signs, the type of pedestrian crossover, lights, the type of paint markings, all of that is related to how much, or the provincial design standards that we have. So we look at the average daily traffic, and we choose the one that's appropriate for the number of lanes and the traffic that we have. If that's helpful.
It is. I believe these intersections, or these locations, I should say, will represent some of the largest traffic volume areas that the city's ever tried to put a PXO on. Is that correct?
I'd have to check the daily traffic counts. I'm not sure. Queen Street's fairly high, but I think Queen Street might be higher than Pine, for example. But we can look at the numbers.
Okay. Thanks for that information. That's helpful. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. So anybody else in 620? Councillor Nero, you had nothing left on the consent agenda, so I'm going to move on. Councillors, you have other matters on consent. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, sorry, this is on the grant we got for the boardwalk. I'm trying to find it in here.
Looking myself, we all know which one you're talking about, so we can.
Unity Revitalization Grant 611.
11.
Through you to Mr. Vare. Mr. Vare, this is, first off, this is a very sizable grant for the size of the project, which is great. So thank you for applying. To be clear, this is for the section of boardwalk that runs along what used to be docks and is now Montana's, and would go around the back side of that property, or the water side of that property?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, that's correct. Yes, it's the, I guess, the eastern side of the Roberta Bondar Marina, and it replaces the former walkway that was there, which had an accessibility issue.
Okay, and it used to be a floating dock back, I don't know how long it's been out of the water, at least 8 or 9 years, but will that still be the case, or will it be solid in place now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, it will be solid in place on the land in this design. In that way, we hope we will avoid the accessibility issue that we had before, and people will connect more at the street level, if you will, along Foster Drive.
Well, that's great. I'm happy to see this link, which has been gone for a long time, is going back in. I think it really opens up that side of the waterfront, and great to see that the federal government's contributing such a significant amount to it. So thank you, Mr. Bear.
Anybody else in 611? Okay. Councilor Shoemaker, do you have anything else?
Yes, 6.12, the Norgoma sale.
Go ahead.
I don't have any questions, but I am extremely pleased to see this is going to be resolved with some finality. I've commented in the past how I don't think the Norgoma has strong historic ties to our community. My position remains the same, and I think that cutting off our continuing expense on the Norgoma is a win-win in all respects. So thanks for the hard work that went into trying to rid ourselves of this burdensome asset.
Thank you for those comments, Councilor Shoemaker. I think it's a positive development. I want to just recognize and thank staff for the effort they've made to really kind of continue on this, because as we know, we've had a number of starts and stops with different parties that are interested, and hopefully this represents the conclusion of it. Councilor Scott on 611, sorry, 612.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. I didn't see it in the report, I don't think, unless I missed it. How much did this end up costing on the docking fee? Do you happen to have that value, Mr. Bear, available, or?
I think the report has $40 a day, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember how many days it's been there or how long we've been paying that $40 a day.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott, I don't have that number in front of me. I can find that and provide it to council.
Sure. I was just curious, but like Councillor Shoemaker said, I'm happy to see this resolved finally.
Councillor Nero on the same matter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, but basically on the applicable bylaw with this report.
Go ahead.
Address that now or with the bylaws?
No, you can address it now. Go ahead.
I looked through the bylaw, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ver, but I didn't see anything that referred to responsibility after the vessel left the dock. Is that something that should be referred to in the bylaw?
Are you asking, Councilor Nero, if we have any responsibility once the boat leaves the dock?
Well, I guess so, because I didn't read that who is responsible for anything after it leaves the dock. I would suspect that the owner of the vessel would be responsible. I'm just wondering if that should be something that we should see in the agreement.
You want to speak to that, and just explain to council maybe when the responsibility for the ship changes hands?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. To Councilor Nero, I saw Karen Fields popped up there to speak. Perhaps I'll let legal address that. Certainly, it's our impression that it will be the responsibility of the new owner of the vessel once they take possession.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Fields. You had some comments on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Nero, that's correct. So once the sale concludes, they'll be responsible from the time it leaves the dock to getting it to where it needs to go.
Okay.
And they'll have to put the insurances on it, etc.
Good enough. Thank you, Ms. Fields. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else in 612? Seeing none? Is that the extent of your matters, Councilor Shoemaker?
I had one last one, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
6.6, the electric Zamboni.
Very good.
Thanks again, Mr. Lamming, for the report. First off, I was happy to see that this came back so quickly after the implementation plan was proposed to us. So that's great. The one wonder I had is the cost of this is coming out of the construction budget, essentially, or the upfit budget, I think it is, for the Northern Community Center twin pad project. Will that reduce any features that we had planned to have?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, at the onset, we had prepared a budget for the furnitures and equipment, including the Zamboni, which amounted to $500,000, which encompassed this portion right here. So there will be nothing pulled back as a result of this. This has been considered in the original budget and approved.
Okay, great. I think that this is it's a great project, first off, in that we are electrifying our fleet to a great extent. But also it's important that it happened, I think, at this community center where we had historic issues with carbon monoxide. And so I think it is symbolic of the actions that we should be taking, not just to keep our environment safe, but to keep our community safe. So thank you. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Councilor Bruni, on the same matter.
Just a quick question to Mr. Laming. In the report, it said about the delivery of the Zamboni machine. Do you have a plan B if the machine is not delivered on time when the twin pad is ready to be opened, especially during the pandemic here that we have? Everything is delayed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno, yes, we can operate with one Zamboni at a twin pad. We don't like to, but what can happen is we do stagger the ice times on a half-hour basis. So in a fail-safe, we can run with the one Zamboni, but it's ideal at the John Rhodes and at the new twin pad to have two. So the lead time on this is approximately 8 months. So it should be here just in time for the facility to open, as long as there's no delays in manufacturing.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else for 6.6? Seeing none, that's the extent of your matters. Councillor Shoemaker, I'm going to go to Councillor Hollingsworth.
Okay.
I see you both, Councillor Christian and Bruni.
B is before C.
Through you, Mayor, for on to the item is 6.1. The Ontario Medical Association, OMA.
Yep.
And the question through you, Mayor, to Mr. White. Their suggestions are very interesting. Just curious, how do you see us proceeding with their suggestions? Or are we just going to take as information for now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. They have attached their correspondence. I think we have to read through it. Likely, it'll become a topic of conversation at the Physician Recruitment Committee, and that would be probably the most appropriate place for it to be reviewed and acted upon.
Okay, thank you. I agree. I just want to confirm that their information is very valuable, and I'm sure Councillor Hilsinger would be also interested to dive into that further, being the chair of the recruitment committee. Thank you. That's all.
Anybody else in 6.1? Thank you. Is that it for your matters, Councillor Hollingsworth?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I recognize that B comes before C, but I had Christian on my list before Bruni, so we're going to go to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good decision. I 6.9, I have a couple of questions regarding the collection system at transit through you to Mr. Laming. These units, once they're installed, are they transferable to new buses that may be brought online? If we decommission a bus, do we pull these units out? How does that process work, or how do you foresee that process working?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, yes, very like our existing units, we can take out the cash box and technology. So we'd continue to do the same as we onboard new units. We'd outfit all of our existing conventional units that we have right now. So that is an option moving forward to saving cost.
Okay, thank you. Two more questions. It says in the report that the service costs after year 5 is $451,000, which is a big number. I'm wondering if the $80,000 in the first year is included in that 451, or is that separated out?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, we had the budget of 1 million for this project and upfront capital. So the 635, our portion 105 is there. So the 80,000 is part of that. The next 2 years, 2 to 5, make up the 451. So we're more than covered in the budget.
Okay. Still a big number. So as far as service costs, what do those include? Like, are there is repair built into that? Are we paying? Is that part of a licensing fee? What is that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, it involves a number of things. One is the ongoing licensing fee and support services for the technology in general, the number of taps, because it is based on the number of rides that are used. So with the smart technology, you have the ability to use your mobile phone, credit card, all the tap technology, and a card as well. So there's ongoing fees involved with that type of service. So that's what the main component is for that ongoing service cost.
Okay. And now, as far as software upgrades, is that included in our service costs and our overall costs, or are those separate items, or do you know that at this point?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, that was part of the evaluation that we went through. And so standard upgrades are part of the cost. Anything special above and beyond would be at our discretion to bring forward to council as a budget request.
Thank you very much. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in 6-9? Councillor Dufour, was that your handout?
Yes, but it was for further matters on consent, Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
Yeah, Councillor Bruni, are you on 6-9?
I'm on 6-9, Mr. Mayor. That was the question that I wanted to ask. Councillor Christian beat me to it, but I can maybe add a couple more questions to this. To Mr. Laming, regarding the 2020 council approved the 1 million for the fare box replacements. If we're going to be spending after 5 years 451,000, what are we going to be doing with the remaining money?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. So we have an upfront cost and we have an ongoing service cost. So we have lots of room in the upfront cost. That's the capital portion. So where we're shy on that, that'll go back into a pool to be utilized for future projects. We do have a plan in place from 2022 to 2026. So we would not want to lose out on any of the ISIP funding that we have. So we do have that option to utilize that going forward to make sure we use full use of that type of funding. It's the ongoing use service cost fee that we may need to address, because if ridership continues to go up, then naturally that ongoing service fee would go up because you have more people tapping the technology. But at the same time, you have more fare revenue coming in from a cash perspective.
If ridership decreases, which I hope it doesn't, does the cost come down?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, yes, it goes both ways. So if there's less tapping going on for the technology, it's based accordingly.
Okay, and so year 2 to 5, the money would come out of operating?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, yes, we would bring our operating requests standard. If it was need to be increased, we'd bring that as part of an annual request to council for under operating as part of the budget process.
So why wouldn't we use the remaining money for that for the next 5 years if we got 500,000 plus and use that for operating?
I think there's a distinction, maybe for clarity, there's a distinction to be made, Councillor Bruni, between the capital funds and the operating funds.
Okay, but year 2 and 5 will come out of operating funds, correct?
Correct. Maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, I can paint it a little bit, maybe a little easier. So the budget was 1 million for capital. So the cost is 635. So we're really good on that spot right there. We anticipated about 65,000 on the operating front. Approximately for usage on this. So we think we're fine in year 1, given the number of months, but going forward, it really be based on ridership and how much that number is. So right now for transit, we're really low on our ridership. So we're around 700,000. A few years ago, we were at 1.9 million. So the more people that ride, the more use we would need for that to support that ongoing operating cost. So that's when we would come back to council. So one is the capital arm for upfront and the other one is ongoing operating.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Anybody else in 6-9? Seeing none. So Councillor Christian, is that those? I think that's the extent of your matters because you're no longer on the screen. Councillor Bruni has also left the room there. So I'm going to you, Councilor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My first item is 6.8, the waste, the garbage truck arms. I don't know if this is going through you to Ms. Hamilton Beach or Mr. White, but my first question is, I mean, these units are what, 2.5 years old, and we're already having incurred, 6 figures in repair costs. Shouldn't some of that have been covered under warranty? And perhaps could someone from staff speak to any legal efforts made by staff to recoup some of these costs from what appears to me to be a manufacturer's defect?
So that we have Mr. Girardi with us. Mr. Girardi, the first question is it a manufacturer's defect? And if so, what are we doing about it?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, what we're trying to do at this point is get some operating equipment. Have we went through any legal matters to look at, whether or not warranty would cover it? We have tried to get the items fixed under warranty in the beginning, and there were some items that were repaired, but these units just don't seem to be very robust, and they just can't seem to handle the day-to-day operation. So that's why we've had good experience with the Labrie units. They're on our old ones. At the time of purchase, we were hoping to go with Labrie, but of course, Schupak had come in at a lesser cost, and with our procurement policy, we were put in that direction to purchase the Schupaks. Unfortunately, they're not a robust unit, so you're correct. We have to spend some money now and put Labries on them.
Okay, so can I take from that the understanding that staff don't see any value in pursuing any further warranty claims against Schupak?
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Dufour, the warranty package is very clear, so I don't know what success we would have at it. Certainly, we can have conversations with legal to take a look at it, but basically, I don't think we'll have much success with it, to be honest with you.
Okay, given the cost of repair here, would it be fair to say that we've lost out on the difference between what the low bid and the mid bid might have been in the beginning with the repairs needed for these units?
Yes, you're correct. Absolutely correct. I think if we'd have went with the Labries right up front, I think we'd have had better success. Unfortunately, that's not the direction we had went at the time. They were spec'd and they did meet spec. Unfortunately, they didn't come in as robust as we had hoped they would.
Okay, and are we certain that the Labrie units can be retrofitted onto the Schupak trucks? Do you have any indication that this has been undertaken before?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Dufour, picture this, the trucks in itself are fine. There's nothing wrong with the trucks. The units themselves are the arms. That's the automated arm that goes on and off. And yes, they will fit on these trucks. Basically, what we're going to do is take off everything that was put on it on the back deck and put on the new units. Put the arms retrofitted to the box that's existing. So they will work, and they've done this before.
Well, hopefully we can avoid a similar scenario going forward with any other trucks that we purchased. Thanks, Mr. Girardi.
We certainly like to avoid that for sure ourselves. Thank you.
That's all I have on 6.8, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else on 6.8? Councilor Dufour, do you have anything else on the consent?
Just on 6.10, Mr. Mayor, not so much a question, just wanted to highlight what I'm glad to see that we reached a fairly bargained agreement with fire services that comes in at a modest increase to taxpayers at 1.3%. So I just want to recognize our negotiating team and, of course, our association of the folks who do provide that valuable service. It's nice to see a free bargained agreement.
Thank you for highlighting that, Councilor Dufour. Share your comments and perspective in that respect. Council, any more matters on the consent agenda? I do not have any, Madam Deputy Clerk.
A motion by Councillors Hollingsworth and Scott resolved that all the items listed under date January 31st, 2020, agenda item 6, consent agenda, be approved as recommended, save and accept agenda item 6.4 and 6.13.
Okay, all in favor? Motion is carried.
And that'll take us to 6.4, the 2022 operating budget levy approval. A report of the Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer is attached for the consideration of Council.
Okay, Councillor Hollingsworth, you asked for this to be accepted from the consent agenda, so I'm going to start with you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, just first a comment and then a question. I just wanted to say to the police board, I'm happy that you came back with reduced numbers. It's evidence, proof that boards can go back to their group and they can relook at their budget and can find some savings. So again, I just want to say this is a good example where a particular board understands that they could potentially or do impact the levy. And so I am glad that they worked through their budget once again. And I hope in the future that potentially other boards may follow suit, or as council, we may nudge other boards to relook and review their numbers, since it does directly impact the overall levy. My question through you, Mayor, to Ms. Shell. Can you just recap for the last 5 years, or even last 3 years, where we now fall in the levy? It's my understanding, I believe, that if we approve this, this is going to be the largest in the last 5 years. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. Yes, this is the highest total levy, which includes the city share as well as the local and levy share over the last 5 years.
Okay. And can you comment on our share as a city share, just for the viewers at home?
The city share has been decreasing since 2019. So in 2019, the city share was 2.55%. And in 2022, council had approved in December 1.35%. And each year in between it had decreased. Unfortunately, the local and levy board has gone in the opposite direction. In 2019, it was 0.99%. And in 2022, it's 2.72%. And again, that is increased over the last several years as well.
Okay, thank you. I know it's difficult for us to even assume why their portion is increasing. We can only make certain assumptions. But my other question to you, Ms. Shell, do you know if these boards receive an education on how their budget directly does impact the levy? Do they fully understand that it's going to be basically cascade down to our community, to our residents?
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, there's no direct education provided by the finance department, but there are city councillors that sit on all of these boards. And, as part of their role, I'm sure that they speak to the impact that it's going to have as well.
Okay, thank you. To be honest with you, my opinion is I'm disappointed in such a high amount, because this upcoming year, the year that we're currently in, there is a threat of inflation. We're starting to see inflation increase. We know that food prices have increased in our grocery stores, not just in Sault Ste. Marie, all across Canada. The day-to-day living expenses are on the increase. So having said that, we as a city have done a very good job in controlling our portion, but I'm very disappointed that other boards have not gone back to try to work the numbers, and like the police board. That's all at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Anybody else on 6-4? Just want to commend, frankly, all of you council and staff, not just finance staff, but staff across the municipality. Certainly finance staff has a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to budget time. But I think when you look at the trends, when you look at our municipal only numbers, you compare our municipal only numbers to our comparators, not just in Northern Ontario, but our similar community comparators outside of Northern Ontario, we're working hard to minimize the impact of our operations on the levy. And I think that the proof is in the numbers. So we're here tonight to finalize this. We have the final number back from police. Thank you to the police services, their finance, working with our finance and the police service board for taking another look at that. With no other comments on it, we can take a vote on this, Madam Clerk. So you have the vote up and describe. All in favor?
I'm just going to read the motion here.
Madison, read the motion.
Oh, yeah. A motion by Councillors Christian and Scott resolved that the report of the Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer dated January 31st, 2022 concerning 2022 operational budget levy approval be received, and that the 2022 levies and local boards be approved, resulting in an increase to the levy and local board portion of the municipal levy from 2021 of 2.72%. The overall 2022 municipal levy, corporate and levy and local boards of $128,077,959 be approved, and the capital expenses for major building maintenance and upgrades to the NG 911 system in the amount of $362,000 be funded from the asset management reserve. And then it's open for voting.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Madison, I vote in favor. It hasn't popped up into my screen.
Okay, Councillor Bruni, I have you in favor. I'm waiting for Councillor Christian, and I had Councillor Hollingsworth voted in the negative. Okay, so all in favor except for Councillor Hollingsworth, and I'm going to close the vote.
Okay, so that passes.
And that will bring us to 7.8 boards and committees. I will start with 7.8.1, the Public Utilities Commission Water Council appointment. One member of council to be appointed, and Councillor Gardy has indicated interest.
Yeah, we have no other interest in that appointment that's been indicated to us. If that continues to be the case, we could pass that resolution and appoint Councillor Gardy to the Water Commission. I think we could all commend Councillor Gardy for the work that he's doing in leading our efforts to make the case that the Canada Water Agency should be in Sault Ste. Marie. I think it would be valuable for Councillor Gardy to get the experience to be on the utility. It's an important function in our community, and I'm glad he's willing to step up and take over the remainder of the year and learn about that. So, Madam Clerk, seeing nobody else with that interest, the vote's up. All in favor?
Just going to read the motion. A motion by Councillors Hollingworth and Scott resolved that Councillor Gardy be nominated to the Public Utilities Commission Water from January 31st, 2022, to December 31st, 2022.
All in favor? Okay, carried. Congratulations, Councillor Gardy. We'll get you connected with that group and get you your transition materials.
Councillor Bruni voted in the affirmative?
Yeah, it was all.
Yes, I did.
Unanimous? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Close the vote there. And that will bring us to the Police Services Board, 7.8.2. One member of council to be appointed, and we've received interest from Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Hollingsworth.
Okay, so we have two councillors that are interested in standing for this. If they are both still interested in standing for this, we will have to have a vote. That has to be a simultaneous recorded vote. The CEO sent that process to all of you earlier. You would all have to write down the name of the councillor you were voting, and we'd all have to hold it up at the same time. So before we get into that, I just want to confirm with both of them that they still intend on standing. Councillor Shoemaker, do you still intend on standing?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Councillor Hollingsworth, do you still intend on standing?
Yes.
Okay. So, Madam Deputy Clerk, I'll leave this to you. But before we get to that, I think it's appropriate to give each of them an opportunity to speak to council and outline why they want to sit on this committee, and then we can go from there to vote. So, Councillor Shoemaker, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. At budget time, and thank you for your service on the Police Service Board over the number of years you've been mayor. At budget time, it was clear that there was an opportunity at the Police Service Board to examine different ways of doing things, including there's a motion on tonight's agenda, and I understand a motion was recently brought at the Police Service Board to examine the potential for consolidating some civilian staff, with the city's civilian staff. That was an area I'd expressed some interest in. I've expressed an interest over the last while in seeing a new police station or some facets of the police station move downtown. Those are all efforts that I want to pursue as a member of the board for the remainder of this council term, and hope that my fellow councillors support me in that regard.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. I'm interested in this position for many reasons. One, since I've been on council, even my first term, my current second term, I've always wanted to increase safety in the downtown area. I was very involved with the Downtown Association with my first term. I promoted what we're doing, the pilot project on having individuals to walk around in the downtown to increase the safety. Also, with regards to the Slow Down campaign that I did with my councillor mate in Ward 1. So it's not just safety, it's also traffic. And I believe that Councillor Hilsinger has said we have a situation all throughout the Sault Ste. Marie with regards to speeders. So safety, speeding, and also I did suggest that the old Royal Bank be turned into a police station down in the downtown area. I do have some other ideas that I'd like to pursue, and working closely and researching what Detroit has done and other communities, including Windsor and also Mississauga. These are some ideas that I like to bring towards our police service board, look at other communities and give them a try. So safety is number one for our children, our family, and our seniors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to leave the process to either you, Mr. CEO, or you, Madam Deputy Clerk, because obviously I have to vote in this myself. So I will not be calling the vote. I'll leave it to you both to do that.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just for ease of reference, once you have prepared your vote slip, could you please raise your hand just so we know that everyone's ready to display it? And we're just waiting for Councillor Scott, I believe. Okay.
Everybody's hand.
So if you can all get your paper ready, please, and raise it. Madison, you can record and I'll read them out. Please raise them to the camera. Councillor Christian votes for Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Bruni votes for Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Hollingsworth votes for Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Nero votes for Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Vesso-Allen votes for Councillor Shoemaker. Mayor Provenzano, unfortunately, I can't read it.
Yeah, it's Penn Malcolm, and I'm a bit of a distance. I voted for Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you. Councillor Shoemaker votes for Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Scott votes for Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Gardy votes for Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Dufour votes for Councillor Shoemaker, and Councillor Hilsinger votes for Councillor Hollingsworth. Madison, if you can declare the result.
I have 7 in favor of Councillor Shoemaker. Sorry, 8. Wait, I have Christian Bruni here. Scott Mayer. Oh, my apologies. I have 9 in favor of Councillor Shoemaker, and I have 2 in favor of Councillor Hollingsworth. And I can now enter the name of Councillor Shoemaker to be recommended in the motion.
You can go ahead and read out that motion now, and council can formally approve the appointment.
I have a motion by Councillors Christian and Gardy, resolved that Councillor Shoemaker be appointed to the Police Services Board from January 31st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. And it's open for voting.
All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'm just waiting for Councillor Christian. I have a unanimous vote, and I will close the vote. And under agenda item 7.8.3 for the Environmental Monitoring Committee, we had 1 citizen appointment. And I have a motion by Councillors Christian and Gardy, resolved that Christian Tenegula be appointed to the Environmental Monitoring Committee from January 31st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. And it's open for voting.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Just waiting for Councillor Scott.
I think I voted, didn't I?
Are you in the affirmative?
Yes.
Okay. It's a unanimous vote. I'll close that vote. And that will bring us to the 8th. And under agenda item 8.1, I have 2 billion trees. And I'll read the motion. A motion by Councillor Gardy and Councillor Hilsinger. Whereas trees capture carbon and reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help in the fight against climate change, and whereas enhancing biodiversity and forest resilience to climate change can be accomplished by planting the right tree species in the right places and restoring wildlife habitat, and whereas the planting of trees creates more green spaces for recreational activities and sanctuaries for connecting with nature, better regulation of temperatures in cities, improved mental well-being and reduced risk of wildland fire and floods to our communities. And whereas the federal government through Natural Resources Development Canada has established a program to plant 2 billion trees over the next several years to capitalize on the foregoing benefits, and whereas eligible applicants are able to apply more than one funding stream under the program, municipalities being an eligible applicant. Now therefore be it resolved that city staff be requested to develop a plan and or utilize an existing plan to apply to the 2 billion tree program's second call for proposals in an effort to plant appropriate tree species to add to our urban tree canopy.
Okay, so Councillor Gardy, would you like to speak to this?
Quickly, everything that we can do in this time of the climate crisis, we should do. This is an effort that I think we should be a part of as a community. We have a long history of forestry education and forestry research here in Sault Ste. Marie. So anything the country is doing as it relates to trees and planting billions of them, I think we should participate in. I think the second call for proposals, the deadline is February 22nd at 2 p.m. So hopefully staff will be able to manage that cutoff. And as I noticed in a communication from Ms. Hamilton Beach to council, I do believe she is correct that we may qualify under the capacity building stream, but I'll leave that for staff to take a look at. Hopefully we'll get the support. Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gardy. Councillor Hilsinger, were you the seconder of this motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I am, and thank you, Councillor Gardy. The only thing I would add to what you said is everything we can do, we should do, and we should do even more because we do have. There's just so many reasons. I've received so many positive emails and correspondence from, and Councillor Gardy did as well, I'm sure, from our residents who are so excited to see these types of initiatives being led by various members of us on council, and everything we can do, we should do, and more. So I do hope we'll have the support of everyone to send this forward.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Madam Clerk.
All right, I'm just going to close the vote, and that will bring us to 8.2 multi-year replacement plan small engine machinery. And I have a motion by Councillors Shoemaker and Christian, whereas the City of Sault Ste. Marie has pledged to use resources wisely to maintain and create a sustainable city for future generation. And whereas the Community Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan 2020 to 2030 recommends supporting electrification opportunities. And whereas in December 2021, Council was presented with a multi-year replacement plan for ice resurfacers, commonly known as Zambonis, which is seeking to electrify all Zambonis in the City of Sault Ste. Marie's fleet. And whereas Public Works uses a substantial number of small engine machinery, including but not limited to ride-on lawnmowers, push mowers, and weed eaters. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be requested to report to council on the feasibility of replacing any small engine equipment with electric small engine equipment as the existing equipment reaches the end of its useful life.
Councilor Shoemaker, do you want to speak to that? Is your motion?
Yes, just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I was happy actually that this motion landed on the same agenda as the tender for the electric Zamboni that we discussed earlier in the meeting. I think it's an example of where we can, where we have the opportunity to electrify our fleet, including Zambonis, including weed eaters, gas or lawnmowers, ride-on lawnmowers, and whatever else we can electrify. We should take it because you don't often, we think of carbon emissions, we think of vehicles, I would say more often than not, but all these small engine emissions add up. And so I think this is a good opportunity to electrify some of those items as they reach end of life and do so in a way that can help our bottom line and help our environment at the same time.
Councilor Christian, I believe you're the seconder on this. You're on mute, but.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. No comment.
Okay. Any questions or comments, council? All in favor? Motion passes.
Right, I have it passing unanimously.
That's correct.
Close the vote, and that'll bring us to 8.3, Northern Ontario Transportation Task Force. A motion by councillors Christian and Shoemaker, whereas Sault Ste. Marie is situated on an international border with access to major U.S. commercial markets, and whereas the International Bridge is situated at the northern terminus of Interstate 75, a major transportation route, and whereas Sault Ste. Marie is located on a major waterway, the St. Mary's River, which is home to the locks of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and Michigan, and whereas the not-for-profit group Coalition for Passenger Trains, CAP, whose membership is composed of volunteers from Sault Ste. Marie and the Algoma District, has been in existence for several years, and whereas the Coalition for Passenger Trains group major focus is advocating for an integrated transportation system for passengers and freight in the Algoma region, and whereas the provincial government recently announced the creation of a Northern Ontario Transportation Task Force, and whereas the task force does not include anyone from Sault Ste. Marie, now therefore be it resolved that Council ask Mayor Christian Provenzano to write a letter to Transportation Minister Caroline Mulroney requesting that a representative from Sault Ste. Marie be included on the Transportation Task Force. Further, be it resolved that MPP Ross Romano be copied on the letter.
Councilor Christian, I'm going to start with you. This was your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's unfortunate that a resolution like this even has to be written. Our role and our presence in transportation talks and the transportation world in Northern Ontario is pretty self-evident by the preamble to the resolution. Besides that, I mean, we have a major highway, the major highway leading east and west out of Sault Ste. Marie. It actually traverses our community. We've worked really hard to get the freight rail between Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury in place. So we've been at the table, we've been advocating for integrated transportation. I think this is a serious oversight by the provincial PCs. I'd like Mr. Romano to be copied into on it, MPP Romano. I'm sure once he gets a copy of this, he'll do his best to fight on our behalf if need be. But certainly a letter from you, I think, will go a long way to rectify what I see as a serious oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Christian. Councilor Shoemaker, you seconded that. Did you want to speak to it?
I think Councilor Christian covered it well. Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried, I believe, unanimously.
I have a unanimous vote. I'll close that vote. And that will bring us to agenda item 8.4, administrative support to police services. I have a motion by Councillors Vezawalan and Shoemaker. Whereas municipalities commonly provide civilian administrative support to municipal police services, and whereas the City of Sault Ste. Marie currently provides financial and human resources support to Sault Ste. Marie Police Services, and whereas the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service budget has increased significantly year over year with civilian costs rising sharply from 2021 to 2022, and whereas the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service is looking for ways to address its impact on the municipal levy without affecting service levels. Now, therefore, be it resolved that City Council directs the CAO to work with the police chief and their respective senior staff to assess the city providing further administrative services to Sault Ste. Marie Police Services, provided the provision of these services, those services represents a decrease in the cost of those services to the ratepayers of the City of Sault Ste. Marie.
Councillor Bezuel, before I come to you, maybe I'll give this some context since I was involved in it with you. Council, this has been a bit of time in the making and coming. The police services is largely made up of officers. Most of the full-time equivalents there are officers, but there's a large number of full-time equivalents there that are civilians. And there's a real driver of civilian costs in that civilian costs are directly related by contract, by the collective agreements, to the cost of an officer. So as the cost of an officer goes up, you have civilian costs kind of go up in a proportion where those civilian costs, frankly, outpace the civilian costs that we see, civilian cost increases that we see here at the city. So, there are a number of functions that take place at police services that are civilian functions that we actually support or provide to some degree. And there are a number of police services in the province where the municipality provides administrative support to the police service. So it's something that we have as a board at the Police Service Board talked about. It's something that's been discussed at the Police Service Board, something that we've talked about internally here at the city, but it hadn't been actioned. And I think one of the reasons why it hadn't been actioned is there wasn't a specific direction from the Police Service Board to the senior command to action it, and there wasn't a specific direction from City Council to the senior staff here to action it, to look at it. So Lisa and I brought a motion to the Police Service Board at my last meeting, directing the police service to work with the city staff on assessing this. And this motion is meant to give the city staff the same direction. So it's no longer just a conversation on the side of people's desks, but a very specific ask from both council and the Police Service Board to have a look at this. So that's how this all came to pass. I thank Councillor Vezawalan for supporting this, both at the police service and here at the city, and Councillor Shoemaker for seconding it, because he raised these issues peripherally during our budget conversation. So with that, Councillor Vezawalan, if you wanted to add anything.
Certainly. I just want to confirm that it has been a conversation around the Police Services Board as well prior to budget drafting and times. There are approximately 10 FTEs in the executive roles and about 44 FTEs in civilian. And it's certainly not the point of this motion to examine all of those. There are certainly some positions such as, if someone's a court clerk and things like that, that aren't going to be something that the city is postured to do. However, there is interactions with many of the city departments. And I want to thank the Police Services Board, my colleagues there, for supporting this motion there and for bringing it forth here. And from last year to this year, it's about 11% increase in those salaries in terms of salaries and benefits. So we're really looking at ways that we can actually ensure that, the dollars in the budget are putting towards officers on the ground. We just saw a very large drug bust happen in the city, and kudos to the drug units that were taking care of that. So that's really where we want to see police dollars go from both a board perspective. I'd like to speak to that, and as well, community safety is what's totally important in ensuring that's happening. So happy to bring this forth. And I know that CAO White, as well as the senior team at Police Services, have already started those discussions, and looking forward to see where we can find some efficiencies.
Okay. Any questions, council? All in favor?
I have it carrying unanimously. Right, I just closed the vote there, and that will bring us to the passing of bylaws. And under agenda item 11, consideration and passing of bylaws, a motion by councillors Hollingsworth and Scott resolved that all bylaws under item 11 of the agenda under date January 31st, 2022 be approved, save and accept bylaw 2022-13.
All in favor? Carried.
Close that vote. And that will bring us to adjournment. Under agenda item 14, a motion by councillors Hollingsworth and Gardy resolved that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? Carried. I'll see you in closed, council. We have to do the close. Yeah, we don't have to do the closed resolution.